Every year, millions of people celebrate Labor Day. Some march, some rest, and some post Happy Labor Day and then immediately email someone just a quick thing, which is honestly not very Labor Day of them. But what actually is Labor Day? Why is it celebrated in so many countries? And how did workers around the world basically say, excuse us, maybe human beings should not work like exhausted factory goblins? Because that is pretty much where this story begins. Back in the 1800s, during the Industrial Revolution, work was not exactly great. People worked extremely long hours in dangerous conditions for low pay and very little protection. 12-hour days were common, 6-day weeks were normal, and children working was, unfortunately, also a reality. So workers began organizing, and one of their biggest demands was simple: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours to actually live. Now we move to the United States, specifically Chicago in 1886. Workers across the country were striking for the 8-hour workday when a protest in Haymarket Square began as a labor rally, but turned violent after a bomb was thrown during a clash with police. Suddenly, it became one of the most famous and tragic moments in labor history. The Haymarket Affair became a symbol not just in America, but around the world. A few years later, in 1889, an international gathering of socialist groups and trade unions decided that May 1 should be a day to support workers and commemorate Haymarket. And that is how International Workers' Day, also called May Day or Labor Day in many countries, was born. So yes, one of the world's biggest annual observances began with workers saying maybe collapsing from overwork should not be the default setting. Now here is where it gets slightly confusing, because history loves chaos. In much of the world, Labor Day is celebrated on May 1, but in the United States, Labor Day is observed on the first Monday in September. This is because the US government chose a separate holiday in the late 19th century, partly distancing itself from the more radical and socialist associations of May Day. So it is the same general idea, honor workers, just on a different date. Very on brand for humanity, honestly. Over time, Labor Day became about more than just factory shifts. It came to represent the broader struggle for fair wages, safer workplaces, reasonable hours, and the right of workers to organize. In other words, many of the things people now think of as basic, weekends, limits on work hours, workplace protections, did not just appear out of thin air like a corporate wellness webinar. They were fought for, and fought for hard. Today, Labor Day looks different depending on where you are. In some countries, it is a public holiday. In others, it is a day of rallies, speeches, and marches. Some treat it as a celebration, some as a protest, and some as both. Because the point is not just yay, jobs. The point is remembering that behind every economy, every city, every company, every app, there are workers making the world function. So why is Labor Day celebrated across the world? Because work shapes society, and because workers spent generations fighting to prove that labor is not just a cost on a spreadsheet, it is human life, human time, and human dignity. So whether it is called Labor Day, or May Day, the message is simple. Respect the people who keep everything running, pay them fairly, and protect their rights. And maybe, do not send emails on the holiday titled Tiny Quick Favor. That is not a tiny quick favor. That is a crime against vibes. Like, share, and subscribe. It's the least exploitative thing you'll do today.